Picture this, an 85,000-pound test vehicle tumbling through the atmosphere. Falling free from the cargo hold of an aircraft flying miles above Earth, the parachutes deploy. The vehicle lands safely and somewhere in the history books. A new record gets written in permanent ink. This wasn't science fiction. This was the Boeing C-17 Globemaster III, working in tandem with NASA pushing them. Absolute boundaries of what's possible in the skies above us, but here's what most people don't realize about this aircraft. The C-17 doesn't just break records and make headlines every single day in some of the most hostile and unforgiving places on Earth. It's doing things that would ground other aircrafts and runways in the middle of nowhere. Ice fields in Antarctica where temperatures make metal brittle and fuel turn sluggish combat zones, where every second counts and there's no room for error. This is the story of an aircraft that rewrote the rules of military cargo aviation, and it starts decades before that first test vehicle ever left the cargo hold. The C-17 Globemaster III carries a name steeped in aviation heritage, a name that echoes back through generations its predecessors, the Douglas C-70 for Globemaster and the C-12 for Globemaster II. Established a legacy during an era when moving massive loads by air was still considered almost miraculous. These were the workhorses of their time, the backbone of military logistics when strategic airlift was being invented. But by the 1970s, military planners recognized something crucial. The world was changing. Conflicts were becoming more mobile, more unpredictable. Traditional cargo aircraft, magnificent as they were, had limitations that couldn't be ignored. They needed long, prepared runways. They struggled in extreme environments and in an age where rapid deployment could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. These limitations were becoming dangerous. Enter the YC-15 prototype, a bold experiment in airlifter design that would lay the conceptual groundwork for something unprecedented. Engineers looked at everything they knew about cargo aviation and asked a radical question: what if we could build an aircraft that combines strategic range with tactical flexibility? What if we could create something that could fly transcontinental distances carrying massive payloads, then land on rough, unprepared surfaces that would destroy conventional aircraft? The vision was extraordinary. The execution would prove even more challenging than anyone anticipated. Development of the C-17 became an engineering odyssey that would test the limits of 1980s aerospace technology. The design challenges came in waves, creating wings large enough to generate the necessary lift while maintaining structural integrity, engineering engines powerful enough to move 585,000 pounds into the sky, yet efficient enough for long-range missions, designing a fuselage that could withstand them stressful tactical operations while remaining aerodynamically sound for high-altitude cruise. Costs mounted, design iterations multiplied. There were moments when the entire program's future hung in the balance. When critics questioned whether this ambitious vision could ever become reality, every solution seems to create two new problems. The wings needed to be bigger, which added weight, which required more powerful engines, which consumed more fuel, which required larger fuel tanks, which added more weight. The engineering team found themselves caught in a complex web of compromises and innovations, each decision cascading through every other system on the aircraft. But perseverance has a way of transforming impossible challenges into historic achievements. September 15, 1991, the sun rose over Long Beach, California, illuminating the assembly plant where something remarkable waited on the tarmac. First production C-17 sat ready, its swept wings catching the morning light from massive Pratt & Whitney turbofan engines, hanging beneath them like promises of power. Inside the cockpit, test pilots ran through their final checks, their fingers moving across instruments with practiced precision. The engines spooled up. The sound was unlike anything heard before in cargo aviation. A deep, thunderous roar that spoke of raw capability held barely in check. The aircraft rolled forward, gathering speed, and then, in a moment that would be replayed in aviation museums and engineering classrooms for decades to come, it lifted off the maiden flight of the C-17 Globemaster III wasn't just another test flight. It was validation of a decade of work, proof that the vision could become reality for years later. On January 17, 1995, the United States Air Force formally welcomed the C-17 into its fleet. The aircraft had passed every test, exceeded expectations in ways that surprised even its designers, and from that moment forward, it would begin writing a service record that would define modern strategic airlift for nearly 2 decades. The production line at Long Beach hummed with activity. Boeing, having merged with McDonnell Douglas, continued refining and producing these remarkable aircraft. Each one that rolled out represented countless hours of skilled labor. Thousands of precisely manufactured components. The final C-17 took flight on November 29, 2015, marking the end of an era, but leaving behind a fleet that would serve for generations to come now. Let's talk about what makes this aircraft so formidable, because the numbers alone tell a story that demands respect. The C-17 stretches 174 feet from nose to tail, standing on end, and it would tower over a 17-story building. Its height of 55 feet and 1 inch means it could easily accommodate a 4-story structure beneath its frame, but the wingspan is where the true scale becomes breathtaking. 169 feet and 9 inches of swept, aerodynamically sculpted wing surface. We're talking about 3,800 square feet of wing area, generating enough lift to hoist the equivalent of 42 fully loaded semi-trucks into the sky. The maximum takeoff weight of 585,000 pounds isn't just impressive on paper. Think about what that means in practical terms. This aircraft can carry the weight of 30 full-size pickup trucks, or 150 motorcycles, or enough humanitarian supplies to sustain thousands of people for weeks. And it doesn't just carry this weight. It moves it through the air at 450 knots while cruising at 28,000 feet, covering ground with a purposefulness that makes distance all. Most irrelevant, the range figures reveal another dimension of the C-17's capability, even while shouldering a 100,000-pound payload. This aircraft can fly over 4,500 nautical miles without refueling. That's roughly the distance from New York to London, or from Los Angeles to Tokyo. Carrying more weight than most aircraft could lift, even if they weren't going anywhere and if the mission demands it. The C-17 can climb to a service ceiling of 45,000 feet, operating in the thin air of the upper atmosphere, where most cargo aircraft struggle to breathe. But perhaps the most telling specification is the payload capacity under stress, under a 2.5 G load factor. During aggressive maneuvering that would tear lesser aircraft apart, the C-17 can still shoulder 169,000 pounds. That's not just strength. That's resilience engineered into every rivet and structural member. These numbers don't exist in a vacuum. They're the direct result of an extraordinarily complex manufacturing process that transforms raw materials into one of the most capable aircraft ever built. Construction begins with the wings, and there's good reason for this in many ways. The wings are the soul of any aircraft. They're not just surfaces that generate lift. They're complex structures that must flex and bend under enormous loads while maintaining their shape and integrity. The C-17's wings are masterpieces of structural engineering, internal spars and ribs forming a skeleton that's simultaneously incredibly strong and precisely flexible. Each wing section is assembled with tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. Too much variance, and the aerodynamics suffer. Too rigid, and the structure becomes brittle, vulnerable to catastrophic failure under stress. The engineers had to find that perfect balance, creating wings that could handle everything from the smooth air of high-altitude cruise to the turbulent, bone-shaking conditions of low-level tactical flight. The fuselage construction demands equal precision, but presents different challenges. Unlike the wings, which can be built as relatively independent structures, the fuselage must integrate seamlessly with everything else. It's not enough for the sections to simply bolt together. The alignment must be perfect, the load paths carefully engineered so that forces distribute evenly. Throughout the structure, watch a C-17 fuselage come together. And you're witnessing something remarkable. Each section arrives from different parts of the manufacturing facility. Some traveling hundreds of miles from subcontractors, these sections must mate with precision that would satisfy a watchmaker. The wing attachment points, the engine mounts, the cargo ramp mechanisms. The landing gear bays, every single interface point represents a potential failure mode that had to be engineered away, then come the engines. And this is where the C-17's true character emerges for Pratt & Whitney F117PW100 turbofan. Engines hang beneath those wings, each one a marvel of thermodynamics and mechanical engineering them. Thrust rating of 40,000 for 140 pounds per engine doesn't adequately capture what these power plants can do. Together, they generate over 160,000 pounds of thrust, enough raw power to accelerate this massive aircraft from standstill to takeoff speed in distances that shock pilots to reverse. Thrust capability isn't some afterthought. It's a fundamental part of what makes this aircraft viable for tactical operations when those thrust reversers deploy after touchdown. They're not just slowing the aircraft, they're enabling operations that would otherwise be impossible, allowing the C-17 to land on runways so short that other strategic airlifters couldn't even consider it. This combination of design excellence, manufacturing precision, and powerful propulsion creates something greater than the sum of its parts. The C-17 isn't just an aircraft. It's a capability, a solution to problems that military planners face every single day and nowhere. Is that capability more evident than when the C-17 operates in places where conventional wisdom says aircraft shouldn't be able to operate at? I'll imagine you're a logistics officer facing an impossible problem. You need to establish an airfield in a remote location where no infrastructure exists. No concrete runways, no control tower, no fuel depot, just sand, stretching out in every direction. Shifting with every wind gust. Traditional cargo aircraft would be useless here. The sand would never support their weight, the tires would sink. The aircraft would get stuck, and what was supposed to be a strategic asset would become a very expensive liability. But the C-17 changes the equation entirely. The process begins with the most basic element imaginable. Water engineers discovered that sand, properly treated, can create a surface firm enough to support enormous weight. Water trucks methodically saturate the sandy terrain, and something almost magical happens. The water binds the sand particles together, creating cohesion where none existed before. As the moisture saturates the surface layer, the loops shifting sand transforms into something approaching the firmness of packed earth. This isn't a quick process. The preparation crews work methodically, section by section, ensuring even saturation to little water. And the surface remains too loose, too much, and you create mud that's just as problematic as dry sand. The technique requires experience, judgment, and an understanding of soil mechanics that most people would never associate with military aviation once the surface is prepared. The next challenge emerges: how do you guide an aircraft to land on a runway that doesn't officially exist? There are no painted markings, no lighting systems, no radio beacons. This is where modern technology and old-fashioned ingenuity combine. In fascinating ways, the crew establishes GPS coordinates marking the beginning and end of the makeshift runway. These coordinates become the aircraft's lifeline, programmed into the navigation systems with precision that leaves no room for error. But GPS alone isn't enough for a successful landing. Pilots need visual references, points they can see and orient to as they make their approach. Enter the marking balloons. Simple but ingenious devices that serve as physical waypoints. These balloons rise on tethers, visible from miles away, giving pilots the visual confirmation they need. The approach begins miles out. The C-17 descends gradually, the crew monitoring airspeed, altitude, and position with intense focus. The co-pilot calls out altitudes and speeds. The pilot adjusts power and attitude with movements so subtle they're almost invisible through them. When screened, those marking balloons grow larger, Providing constant visual confirmation of alignment, the main gear touches down first. The massive tires compressing as they absorb the initial impact, the nose gear follows. A moment later, and here's where you see the prepared surface prove it's worth the sand, properly treated and compressed, holds. The aircraft's weight distributes across those wide tires and instead of sinking or sliding. The C-17 rolls forward with authority, its reverse thrusters deploying to bleed off speed in a distance that seems impossible for an aircraft this size. After landing comes the real test. Can this aircraft take off again from this improvised surface? The engines spool up to full power. The roar. Washing over the makeshift airfield, the brakes release. The C-17 accelerates, and those same tires that just absorbed the landing now transfer hundreds of thousands of pounds of thrust into that compact. Ed sand. The aircraft gathers speed, the nose lifts, and seconds later it's airborne again, climbing away from a place where most aircraft could never dream of operating before departure. The crew removes those marking balloons, carefully stowing them for reuse. Nothing goes to waste in these operations. Every piece of equipment, every technique, every lesson learned gets preserved and passed forward, making the next operation just a little bit more efficient. But sand runways, challenging as they are, represent just one end of the environmental spectrum where the C-17 operates. Now take that same aircraft to the opposite extreme. Antarctica, where the very concept of aviation confronts nature at its most hostile and unforgiving. The challenges here aren't just different from solved. The environments, they're almost incomprehensible until you've experienced them. Start with the cold. We're not talking about the cold of a harsh winter day, we're talking about temperatures that hover around 40, 50, sometimes 60 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. At these temperatures, metal becomes brittle. Hydraulic fluid turns sluggish. Fuel doesn't want to atomize properly. Rubber seals contract and lose their flexibility. Everything that normally works without a second thought suddenly becomes a potential failure point. Other cargo aircraft have attempted Antarctic operations, and many have found the environment overwhelming. The C-130 Hercules, a workhorse in its own right, often requires jet-assisted takeoff systems. In these conditions, these Yato bottles are essentially rocket motors that strap onto the aircraft, providing extra thrust during the critical takeoff phase when engines struggle in the thin, frigid air. The C-17 doesn't need this assistance, and understanding why reveals the depth of engineering excellence built into this aircraft. Those for turbofan engines aren't just powerful in ideal conditions. They're designed to maintain their performance across an enormous range of environmental extremes. The engine control systems automatically adjust fuel flow, compression ratios, and dozens of other parameters in real time, compensating for temperature and altitude effects that would cripple simpler power plants. When a C-17 lands at Phoenix Airfield in Antarctica or any of the other ice runways scattered across the frozen continent, it's making calculations that factor in ice density, surface texture, wind conditions, and temperature effects. The pilots don't need to understand all the mathematics. The aircraft systems handle the complexity, adjusting and compensating automatically. But the real magic happens during takeoff from these frozen surfaces. The engines push to maximum power, and the thrust reverser systems, which proved so valuable for short landings on sand, now serve a different purpose. On ice, stopping distances can extend dangerously as friction nearly disappears. Those reversers become critical safety systems. The difference between a controlled stop and a potentially catastrophic overrun. The C-17's operations in places like Antarctica aren't just about proving capability, they're lifelines. Research stations scattered across the continent depend on regular resupply flights, scientific equipment, food, fuel, medical supplies, personnel rotations, everything that makes human presence possible in that frozen wilderness arrives aboard aircraft like the C-17 when weather windows open. When conditions align just enough to make flight possible, the C-17 doesn't hesitate. It goes, it delivers, and it returns. maintaining a thread of connection between one of Earth's most isolated regions and the rest of human civilization. These extreme environment operations highlight a crucial truth about the C-17 versatility isn't just about carrying different types of cargo, it's about operating in fundamentally different worlds, each one presenting unique challenges that would ground lesser aircraft. But carrying cargo, even in extreme environments, represents only part of what makes the C-17 indispensable. Some of its most critical missions involve moving something you can't see or touch, but absolutely cannot operate without fuel in military aviation. Fuel logistics often determine what's possible and what isn't. You can have the most advanced fighter jets, the most skilled pilots, the best intelligence. None of it matters if your aircraft are sitting on the ground with empty tanks. Traditional fuel logistics involve established supply chains, tanker trucks, established fuel depots. These work fine when you're operating from major air bases with infrastructure built up over years, but modern conflicts don't always cooperate with traditional logistics models. The Aerial Bulk Fuel Delivery System, ABFDS for short, represents one of those innovations that seems simple on the surface, but changes everything in practice at its core. The system consists of large bladder tanks, pumping modules, meters, and distribution hoses. Nothing exotic, nothing that requires revolutionary technology. But the way these components come together, and more importantly, the way the C-17 deploys them, creates capabilities that reshape operational planning. Here's the scenario that makes ABFDS invaluable. Forward operating location needs fuel, needs it urgently, and needs it in quantities that ground transportation simply cannot deliver fast enough. Maybe it's behind enemy lines. Maybe it's in terrain that makes ground convoy movement suicidal. Maybe it's somewhere that didn't exist as an operational location until 3 hours ago. And now it's critical to mission success. The C-17 loads up with ABFDS configured for the mission. Two 3,000-gallon bladder tanks sit in the cargo hold, connected to pumping systems capable of moving 600 gallons per minute. Both pumps operating together double that rate to 1,200 gallons per minute. To put that in perspective, that's faster than most commercial gas station pumps, and we're talking about an aircraft cargo hold, not a dedicated tanker truck. The aircraft flies to the location, lands on whatever surface is available, and suddenly fuel availability transforms from critical shortage to operational abundance. The bladder tanks can be offloaded quickly, establishing a fuel depot where none existed, or the C-17 can conduct hot pit refueling, pumping fuel directly to other aircraft while its own engines remain running, ready for immediate departure if the situation demands it. This capability aligns perfectly with modern operational concepts like agile combat employment, which envisions dispersed operations across multiple locations rather than concentration at major bases. The idea is resilience through distribution. The fuel can reach any location quickly. Then aircraft can operate from anywhere, making targeting and disruption far more difficult for adversaries. But ABFDS represents only one dimension of the C-17's fuel delivery capabilities. The aircraft can also conduct precision airdrop missions, sending fuel containers tumbling from the cargo hold with parachutes that control their descent. These drops can place fuel in locations where landing isn't possible or advisable, where the terrain is too rough for the tactical situation to uncertain. The versatility extends beyond just moving fuel. The C-17 has proven it can deploy entire systems, complete operational packages that transform empty terrain into functional forward locations in hours instead of days. Take the Maritime Craft Aerial Deployment System, NCADS, which sounds complicated but describes something remarkably straightforward yet audacious. The system allows the C-17 to airdrop boats and Marines directly into ocean environments, creating instant maritime capability in locations far from traditional naval assets. Picture the operational scenario. A maritime threat emerges in a region where friendly naval forces are hours or days away. Traditional response times are unacceptable, but a C-17 can fly from a land base carrying Marines, their equipment, and specialized boats designed for rapid deployment. The aircraft flies over the target ocean area, the cargo ramp opens, and the entire package exits the aircraft in a carefully choreographed sequence. The boats deploy their flotation systems. Parachutes stabilize the descent. Marines follow in separate drops, linking up with their craft after splashdown. Within minutes of the C-17's departure, a fully operational maritime unit is conducting operations in waters where they quite literally didn't exist moments before. This capability fundamentally changes. The calculus of maritime operations: distance from ports no longer equals security. Isolated waters no longer guarantee freedom of movement. The C-17, working in conjunction with specialized marine units, projects power across domains in ways that adversaries struggle to predict or counter. These mission profiles: fuel delivery, maritime deployment, extreme environment operations, all share a common thread. They take the C-17's fundamental capabilities and apply them in innovative ways that solve real operational problems. But innovation sometimes means pushing boundaries so far that you move from solving existing problems to discovering what might be possible, which brings us to that moment we discussed at the beginning. The one that made history and set records that still stand today: the collaboration between the Air Force and NASA to test the limits of air drive capability didn't emerge from nowhere. It grew from a recognition that understanding the boundaries of what's possible requires actually pushing against those boundaries deliberately and carefully, until you know exactly where they are. The Jumbo Drop Test Vehicle, or JDTV, started as a concept. What if we could drop extremely heavy loads with precision, not just fuel, bladders, or boats, but payloads weighing as much as small buildings? The potential applications ranged from rapid infrastructure deployment to emergency disaster relief to classified military capabilities. But theory is one thing. Proving it works in reality is something else entirely. The test program progressed methodically, building confidence through incremental steps. The first tests dropped 60,000-pound loads, already impressive by any standard. Systems worked as designed, parachutes deployed correctly, landing impacts stayed within acceptable parameters. Success at 60,000 pounds gave confidence to attempt 70,000 at 70 th. 1,000 pounds, new challenges emerged. The parachute deployment sequence required refinement. The stresses on attachment points approached design limits. Engineers adjusted, tested, analyzed, and refined. Success again, and the program pushed forward to 77,000 pounds. Each increment taught new lessons. The data accumulated. Computer models became more sophisticated. The team developed a deeper understanding, not just of what worked, but why it worked, which gave them confidence to attempt something unprecedented. 85,000 pounds. Think about that weight for a moment. It's the equivalent of 17 full-size pickup trucks. It's more than many small aircraft weigh empty, and the plan was to push this mass out of a C-17's cargo hold at altitude. Control its descent th. Rough atmosphere with nothing but fabric parachutes, and bring it down safely the day of the test. Preparations followed procedures refined through the earlier drops. The JDTV sat secured in the cargo hold, its weight distributed precisely across attachment points engineered to handle the enormous forces involved. The parachute system, packed with meticulous care, waited to deploy in a sequence timed to milliseconds. The aircraft's cargo loading system, designed for heavy loads but never tested quite like this, stood ready to prove its capabilities. The C-17 climbed to altitude. The crew ran through their checklists with focus that comes from knowing that years of work ride on their execution. The cargo ramp lowered, wind rushing into the cargo hold, creating turbulence that makes even experienced loadmasters respect the environment. The extraction sequence initiated. The JDTV slid backward on its rollers, accelerating as it approached the edge of the ramp. And then it was gone, falling free, tumbling through space in a moment of apparent chaos before the drogue chute deployed, stabilizing the fall. The main parachutes followed in sequence, each one blooming open with forces that would tear apart anything not engineered for this purpose. The JDTV's descent slowed, controlled now. following a trajectory that ground tracking systems monitored second by second. It landed successfully. All systems functioned as designed, the test vehicle survived intact, and in that moment, a record was set that would stand as testament to what's possible when engineering excellence meets operational ambition. The partnership with NASA on this test program exemplifies something important about the C-17's place in aviation history. This isn't just a military cargo aircraft. It's a platform for innovation, a tool that enables exploration of the boundaries of what's achievable. The research data from these drops doesn't just benefit military operations, it advances aeronautical science, contributing to knowledge that will influence aircraft design and operations for decades to come. From its earliest conceptual stages through its final production flight, from sandy runways in remote locations to ice fields in Antarctica, from fuel delivery missions to maritime deployments, to record-breaking cargo drops, the C-17 Globemaster III has consistently demonstrated something that goes beyond mere capability. It represents the convergence of vision and execution, of theoretical possibility and practical achievement. The engineers who grappled with its design challenges created something that doesn't just meet T requirements, it exceeds them in ways that continue to surprise even after decades of operational service. The manufacturing precision that goes into every aircraft ensures that the hundreds of C-17s built aren't just similar to each other, they're virtually identical. Each one capable of performing to the exact same standards. The operational versatility means that military planners can rely on a single aircraft type for missions that used to require maintaining fleets of specialized aircraft. The C-17 doesn't need to be optimized for one thing because it's fundamentally capable across the entire spectrum of cargo airlift missions, and perhaps most importantly, the C-17 demonstrates that innovation doesn't end when an aircraft enters service. The ABFDS modifications, the MCADS capability, the collaboration with NASA on advanced testing. These represent a willingness to keep exploring, keep pushing, keep asking what else might be possible. With this platform, the final C-17 that took flight from Long Beach in 2015 marked the end of production, but not the end of the story. These aircraft will serve for decades to come, accumulating millions of flight hours, supporting countless missions, operating in environments that haven't even been imagined yet, and through all of it, they'll continue demonstrating the same qualities that define the program from its inception: capability, versatility, reliability, and a fundamental refusal to accept that anything is impossible. This is what makes the C-17 Globemaster III more than just an aircraft. It's a solution to problems we haven't even encountered yet, built on a foundation of engineering excellence that will remain relevant regardless of how military operations evolve. From the first concept tool sketches to those 85,000. The story of the C-17 is ultimately a story about pushing boundaries, solving impossible problems, and creating capabilities that reshape what's possible. And somewhere right now, AC-17 is proving that all over again. Picture this: a fighter jet slips into enemy airspace in the dead of night, completely undetected by air defenses. The stealth aircraft blazes a trail for bombers as they discreetly approach heavily defended nuclear facilities. This isn't science fiction. This is the F-35 Lightning II operating in real combat missions right now, the world's most advanced fighter jet, proving itself on the front lines and evolving for future threats. But here's what most people don't realize about this aircraft. The F-35 isn't just a fighter jet, it's a force multiplier that's redefining air dominance for America and its allies every single day, in contested airspace where other aircraft couldn't survive. It's doing things that seemed impossible just decades ago: gathering intelligence, sharing data across all military domains, and executing precision strikes with unprecedented accuracy. This is the story of an aircraft that represents the convergence of stealth technology, advanced sensors, and network-centric warfare, and it starts with a competition that would determine the future of military aviation. The F-35 Lightning II descends from the Lockheed Martin X-35, which in 2001 beat the Boeing X-32 Two, with a Joint Strike Fighter program intended to replace multiple aging aircraft across different military branches, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, the F-A-18 Hornet, and the McDonnell Douglas AV-8B Harrier to jump jet, all would eventually be succeeded by variants. Of this single revolutionary design, its development was primarily funded by the United States, with additional funding from NATO partner countries, including Australia, Canada, Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, and the United Kingdom. The vision was extraordinary: create one aircraft platform that could serve the Air Force, Navy, and Marines, each variant optimized for different mission requirements, but sharing a common core of advanced technology. The program drew criticism for its unprecedented size, complexity, ballooning costs, and delayed deliveries. The decision to start manufacturing while still in development and testing led to expensive design changes and retrofits, but perseverance and continuous innovation transformed these challenges into a combat-proven system. September 2006 marked a pivotal moment when the first production F-35A took flight, the conventional takeoff and landing variant designed for the Air Force. 4 years later, the F-35B demonstrated its unique capability. The short takeoff and vertical landing variant for the Marines in 2010. The F-35C completed its maiden flight, the carrier variant built for Navy operations. Each variant shared approximately 80% commonality in parts and systems, reducing logistics complexity but tailored specifically for the unique operational requirements of each service branch. The F-35A with conventional landing gear for Air Force bases around the world, the F-35B with its revolutionary lift fan system enabling operations from amphibious assault ships. The F-35C with reinforced landing gear and larger wings for the violent physics of carrier operations. From these first flights through decades of testing and refinement, the aircraft evolved into three distinct but related platforms, each one pushing the boundaries of what fifth-generation fighter technology could achieve. Now, let's talk about what makes this aircraft so formidable, because the capabilities alone tell a story of technological dominance. The F-35 Lightning II isn't just fast, it's intelligent, connected, and virtually invisible to enemy radar systems. Stealth technology forms the foundation of everything this aircraft does. The airframe shape was designed using computational modeling that calculated radar reflections from every angle. Special coatings absorb radar energy rather than reflecting it back to enemy systems. Internal weapons bays keep missiles and bombs hidden inside the fuselage, maintaining the aircraft's low radar cross-section from certain angles and at certain frequencies. The F-35 appears on radar screens as little more than a bird. This invisibility allows the aircraft to penetrate defended airspace that would be suicide for conventional fighters, but stealth is just the beginning of what makes the F-35 revolutionary. The sensor fusion system represents the true game-changing technology. 6 infrared sensors provide complete spherical coverage around the aircraft. The pilot can literally look through the floor of the cockpit using the helmet-mounted display system information from radar, infrared sensors, electronic warfare systems, and data links combines into a single coherent picture. The APG-81 active electronically scanned ray radar can track multiple targets simultaneously, while also conducting electronic warfare and communications functions, all without the mechanical limitations of older rotating radar systems. The electro-optical targeting system provides long-range detection and precision targeting of ground and air threats. Distributed aperture system warns pilots of incoming missiles from any direction, even threats approaching from behind the aircraft that the pilot couldn't possibly see. All this information flows through processors that fuse the data into an intuitive display. The pilot doesn't see raw radar. The story of the C-17 is The story of the C-17 is ultimately a story about pushing boundaries, solving impossible problems, and 6 infrared sensors provide complete electronic warfare, and communications functions, all without the mechanical limitations of older rotating radar systems. The electro-optical targeting system provides long-range detection and precision targeting of ground and air threats distributed. Aperture system warns pilots of incoming missiles from any direction, even threats approaching from behind the aircraft that the pilot couldn't possibly see. All this information flows through processors that fuse the data into an intuitive display. The pilot doesn't see raw radar returns or separate infrared images, they see a complete tactical picture with threats identified, prioritized, and tracked automatically. But perhaps the most revolutionary aspect is how this information gets shared beyond the cockpit. The F-35 operates as a node in a larger network, connecting platforms across all military domains: air, land, sea, space, and cyber, all linked through secure, high-speed data connections. And F-35 detecting enemy air defenses can share that targeting data with Navy ships hundreds of miles away. Surface vessels can launch missiles guided by the F-35 sensors without ever exposing themselves. Ground forces receive real-time intelligence from F-35s orbiting overhead in contested airspace. Other fighters, even older fourth-generation aircraft, gain enhanced capabilities when operating alongside F-35s. This network-centric warfare concept transforms how modern military operations are conducted. The F-35 doesn't just fight. It makes everything around it more lethal and effective. Now, let's talk about the weapons that make this aircraft so dangerous to adversaries. The internal weapons bay of the F-35A and F-35C can carry 2 AIM-120 MRAM air-to-air missiles plus to 2,000-pound joint direct attack munitions for precision ground strikes. The F-35B trades some internal capacity for its vertical landing capability, but maintains formidable firepower. Recent upgrades introduced the Sidekick weapons rack, increasing internal air-to-air missile capacity to 6 MRAMs. This enhancement dramatically improves the aircraft's ability to engage multiple aerial threats while maintaining stealth for missions where stealth isn't the primary concern. External hardpoints can carry additional weapons. The total weapons payload capacity reaches 18,000 pounds when using external stations. Integration of the AGM-158 Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff missile family provides long-range strike capability. The JASSM can hit targets over 200 miles away. Launched from safely outside enemy air defense range, the long-range anti-ship missile variant gives F-35s the ability to engage naval targets at extreme distances. GBU-53 Stormbreaker Glide bombs provide precision strike capability against moving targets in adverse weather. The AGM-88G advanced anti-radiation guided missile extended range suppresses enemy air defenses, destroying radar systems that would threaten other aircraft in the strike package. The Joint Strike Missile adds anti-ship capability specifically designed for the F-35's stealth profile. Recent contracts worth over $240 million are expanding JSM production for the F-35A fleet. Integration testing continues on new weapons systems, constantly expanding the aircraft's mission flexibility from air superiority to ground attack. From anti-ship to electronic warfare, the F-35 handles the full spectrum. But weapons and sensors mean nothing without the propulsion system to employ them effectively. The Pratt & Whitney F135 engine represents one of the most powerful fighter engines ever built, producing 43,000 pounds of thrust, enough to push the F-35A to speeds exceeding Mach 1.6. The engine can operate above 50,000 feet, accessing the thin air of the upper atmosphere, where bombers cruise and ballistic missiles fly during their mid-course phase. The F-35B variant uses a unique propulsion configuration with a shaft-driven lift fan. This system redirects engine thrust downward through the lift fan and rotating rear nozzle, enabling vertical takeoffs from austere locations and landings on small amphibious ships. The technology allows Marines to operate fixed-wing stealth fighters from ships never designed for conventional aircraft. Recent engine development programs focused on increasing power and cooling Capacity: the engine core upgrade program addresses thermal management challenges as new. Sensors and weapons demand more electrical power. Advanced electronics generate heat that must be dissipated even at high altitudes where cooling is difficult. The ECU increases thrust by 10%. While providing significantly more electrical power generation capacity, these improvements ensure the F-35 can accommodate future upgrades without fundamental redesign, but even the most capable aircraft means nothing if it can't be maintained and kept mission-ready. This is where the F-35 program faced some of its toughest challenges and ongoing criticism. In 2024, the average air vehicle availability rate for all F-35 aircraft was only 50%, meaning the jets were not available to fly half of the time. Repair times have been slow, and there has been a growing backlog of components needing repair. This has reduced the aircraft's availability for missions despite massive investments in sustainment. A Pentagon audit found that Lockheed Martin received over $1.7 billion by July 25, even though readiness rates did not meet minimum service standards. The F-35 Joint Program Office did not include aircraft readiness performance requirements in sustainment contracts, allowing payment despite low availability and mission capability rates. These issues highlight ongoing challenges in maintaining a fleet of over 1,300 aircraft. Globally, the logistics system supporting F-35 operations spans multiple countries and thousands of suppliers. Parts shortages, software integration problems, and training pipeline bottlenecks all contribute to availability issues. But efforts are underway to address these challenges through improved supply chain management and streamlined maintenance procedures, modernized sustainment capabilities, and 24/7 support from Lockheed Martin's global network aim to keep F-35s mission-ready. Despite the complexity of maintaining such advanced technology, the program represents a learning curve for maintaining fifth-generation stealth fighters at scale. Lessons being applied to improve availability rates and reduce them time aircraft spend in maintenance. Now, let's examine how the F-35 has actually performed in combat. Because real-world operations tell the true story, Israel's F-35 Idir variant has seen extensive combat use in multiple conflicts across the Middle East. Israeli F-35s conducted airstrikes against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon during 2024, including aerial refueling operations conducted inside Lebanese airspace. The aircraft participated in strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen in September 2024 and were reportedly involved in October 2024 strikes against Iranian military facilities. In June 2025, Israeli F-35s conducted strikes deep inside Iran equipped with conformal fuel tanks. These low observable external tanks extend range while maintaining reduced radar signature, enabling operations over Iranian soil without mid-air refueling. Penetrating some of the world's most heavily defended airspace, Iranian state media claimed that shot down several Israeli F-35 jets. Claims the IDF firmly denied the F-35's combat record in Israeli hands demonstrates its ability to operate in heavily contested environments. U.S. Navy and Marine Corps' F-35s have also proven their worth in real combat operations. From early April 2025, U.S. Navy F-35Cs were downing Houthi drones over the Red Sea, operating from aircraft carriers in Middle Eastern waters. As part of ongoing operations, the fighters intercepted cruise missiles, drones, and other threats launched against commercial shipping and naval vessels, demonstrating the aircraft's air defense capabilities. In addition to its strike mission profile, the F-35's sensor fusion proves invaluable in detecting and tracking multiple simultaneous threats, enabling successful intercepts in a complex and chaotic battlespace. Marine F-35Bs operated from amphibious assault ships, providing close air support and strike capabilities without requiring large aircraft carriers or established air bases. This operational flexibility proved the worth of the short takeoff and vertical landing variant in contested areas where traditional bases might not be available or safe to use. These combat operations validated Years of development, testing, and training. The F-35 didn't just survive in combat, it excelled, accomplishing missions other aircraft couldn't attempt, but the aircraft's development continues. Because modern warfare never stands, the modernization program represents over 75 major upgrades for all three F-35 variants, including increased missile capacity, advanced electronic warfare capabilities, and improved target recognition plus main need to know for obvious security reasons. The Technology Refresh 3 hardware suite provides the computing power necessary for these advanced capabilities, new processors, memory, and display systems that dramatically increase the aircraft's information processing capacity. Block for capability upgrades benefit all nations operating the F-35, not just U.S. forces, ensuring allied F-35s maintain technological parity and interoperability with American jets. However, the Block for program has faced significant challenges that delayed implementation. The estimated cost increased from $10.6 billion to $16.5 billion. Completion of the upgrade was delayed from 2026 to 2029. At the earliest difficulties with Technology Refresh 3 hardware, including regression testing. CAS delivery halts, aircraft deliveries stopped from July 2023 to July 2024 and September 2025. Announcements indicated the block for upgrade would be truncated and delayed further due to technological uncertainties and the need to prioritize the most critical capabilities. These delays highlight the complexity of modernizing a fighter jet. While it's already in full-rate production, upgrading software and hardware across over 1,300 aircraft in service globally, while simultaneously building new jets and maintaining combat readiness represents an engineering and logistics challenge unlike anything attempted before in military aviation. Despite these challenges, F-35 production continues at an impressive pace. Lockheed Martin delivered 110 F-35s in 2024 and a record 191 aircraft in 2025, bringing the global fleet to approximately 1,300 jets. Production lots 15, 16, and 17 are now rolling off assembly lines with improved capabilities. The hot production line maintains a consistent rate of 156 F-35s per year, with aircraft destined for the United States and international partners worldwide. As of July 2024, the average flyaway costs per plane reached $82.5 million for the F-35A, $109 million for the F-35B, and $102.1 million for the F-35C. These costs don't include the engine, which is negotiated separately and adds another $20.4 million. The total program cost estimates now exceed $2 trillion. Over the aircraft's 77-year planned life cycle, this includes modernization efforts, sustainment, and operating costs for the full fleet of 2,470 planned aircraft. Point to these costs as evidence of program mismanagement and unrealistic requirements. Supporters argue the F-35 provides capabilities no other aircraft can match at any price. The debate continues as more nations join the program and production numbers increase. Belgium, Japan, and South Korea have purchased F-35s through foreign military sales. Singapore joined as a security cooperative participant, expanding the aircraft's global footprint. Poland, Finland, and other nations continue evaluating the F-35 for their future fighter requirements. Each new customer strengthens the industrial base and potentially reduces per-unit costs through it. Economies of scale, but also increases the complexity of managing a truly global program with diverse requirements. The F-35 program contributes approximately $72 billion annually to America's economy. Its network of 1,650 suppliers supports 275,000 U.S. jobs across all 50 states, including an estimated 22,750 union jobs. In manufacturing and support roles, this economic impact makes the program politically resilient. Despite technical challenges and cost overruns, few congressional districts lack some connection to F-35 production or support, creating a political coalition that supports continued funding even during budget debates. Now, let's look at how the F-35 fits into the future of air combat alongside emerging technologies. When Boeing was awarded the contract for the next-generation air dominance fighter in March 2025, Lockheed Martin proposed leveraging development work from its own NGAD proposal to create possible 5.5 generation plus configurations of existing fighters, including the F-35. This could port bleeding-edge technologies into operational aircraft much faster than waiting for entirely new platforms, advanced sensors, new electronic warfare capabilities, improved networking, and artificial intelligence integration. All potentially available for F-35s years before sixth-generation fighters reach full operational capability, the concept of man-to-man teaming represents another frontier. For F-35 operations, using the fighter as a command node controlling multiple autonomous drones. These collaborative combat aircraft would extend the F-35's reach without risking additional pilots. Drones could perform reconnaissance, jamming, or even weapons delivery under F-35 direction. The pilot maintains tactical decision-making authority while artificial intelligence handles routine tasks. His approach leverages the strengths of both manned and unmanned systems, human judgment and adaptability combined with machine speed and expendability. Early experiments demonstrate F-35 successfully controlling and coordinating with unmanned platforms. The technology continues maturing as both aircraft software and drone capabilities advance. Looking further ahead, the question becomes whether piloted fighters remain relevant at all as autonomous systems grow, more capable, and artificial intelligence improves. Some analysts argue future air combat will be conducted entirely by unmanned platforms, removing the vulnerability of human pilots and the limitations of human physiology, but F-35 proponents counter that piloted fighters remain essential for complex battle spaces where human judgment, creativity, and ethical decision-making cannot be replicated by machines. The ability to adapt to unexpected situations, make moral judgments about targets, and exercise restraint, these remain uniquely human capabilities that justify maintaining piloted aircraft. The F-35's design philosophy of continuous modernization ensures it can evolve alongside these new technologies, rather than becoming obsolete as unmanned systems mature. Integration with drones. Incorporation of artificial intelligence for sensor fusion and targeting, and networking with space-based and ground-based systems all enhance F-35 capabilities without requiring a completely new aircraft to be designed, tested, and fielded. This adaptability may prove to be the F-35's most important characteristic, more valuable than any single sensor or weapon system. The ability to incorporate new technologies as they become available while maintaining compatibility with existing infrastructure, training systems, and logistics networks from its earliest conceptual stages through its current combat operations and future modernization efforts. The F-35 Lightning II has consistently demonstrated capabilities that redefine what fighter aircraft can accomplish. It represents the convergence of stealth technology, sensor fusion, and network-centric warfare, creating a platform that's more than just a fighter jet. It's a force multiplier that enhances every other asset in the battle space. The engineers and test pilots who brought the X-35 from concept to reality created something unprecedented: an aircraft family serving 3 different military services across multiple nations. Each variant optimized for specific missions, but sharing common technology and logistics. The manufacturing precision ensures consistency across over 1,300 aircraft built to date, with hundreds more planned over the coming decades. The operational versatility demonstrated in combat validates years of development and testing. Israeli F-35s penetrating Iranian air defenses, Navy F-35s intercepting drones over the Red Sea, Marine F-35s providing close air support from amphibious ships, these real-world missions prove the aircraft works as designed under the most demanding conditions the ongoing modernization challenges. Remind us that cutting-edge technology comes with complexity block for delays, sustainment issues, and cost growth represent real problems requiring real solutions. But they also reflect the ambition of creating an aircraft that will serve into the 2070s and beyond, adapting to threats that don't even exist yet. The economic impact spanning thousands of suppliers and hundreds of thousands of jobs makes the F-35 more than just a weapons system. It's an industrial enterprise supporting communities across America and allied nations. This is what makes the F-35 Lightning II more than just the world's most advanced fighter jet. It's a capability that will define air dominance for generations. A platform designed to evolve with technology rather than become obsolete, a network node that makes everything around it more lethal and effective, from the first X-35 test flights to those combat missions over Iran and the Red Sea. The story of the F-35 is ultimately about pushing boundaries, solving impossible problems, and creating capabilities that ensure America and its allies maintain air superiority in an era when adversaries are developing their own advanced fighters and air defense systems. The F-35 represents the commitment to staying ahead, adapting faster, and fighting smarter. And somewhere right now, an F-35 is proving that all over. Again, Poland, Finland,